Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming to join us today. We're going to give it a few minutes until Brian gets on. It's exciting. I feel uh, electric in the air. Everybody's been wanting to find out what exactly is going on with the acquisition of Meridian Bet. We're going to have a chance today to go over a little bit of the history that's led Golden Matrix Group to this point, giving them the ability to make an acquisition of this nature. And we're going to hear about where we stand as a company, and then we're going to hear about Meridian Bet Group. We're going to find out, what they currently have and what together Golden Matrix Group and Meridian will look like, and what that means for the investors and shareholders. There's a lot of amazing information we're going to go over today. Make sure you're taking notes. If not, don't worry. This is going to be recorded so that you can access this space later for your due diligence purposes and information. Before we get started, I want to give a disclaimer. We want to remind you that Brian's commentary and responses to questions may include forward-looking statements, which by their nature are uncertain and outside of the company's control. Although these forward-looking statements are based on the management's current expectations and beliefs, actual results may differ materially. For a discussion of some of the risk factors that could cause actual results to differ, please refer to the risk factor section of Golden Matrix Group's last annual and quarterly filings with the SEC. I'm going to invite Brian up to talk. We'll get started. There you go, Brian. If you would click the microphone in the bottom left corner, it'll accept the invite. Approve. Brian, are you there? I certainly can. It's a pleasure to have you on. Before we get started, for all those that are listening and are already in the room, please go and share this space on your accounts right now. DM some friends that want to look at Golden Matrix Group as an investment or have questions, and get them on the space so that we can fill the room. And we're about to get started here with Brian Goodman, CEO of Golden Matrix Group, Inc.
Perfect.
Brian,
Thanks
before
for having
we
me,
start,
Josh.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Before we start, I know we've worked together for quite a while. Could you tell everybody simply about your background that led you to being in this position with Golden Matrix Group?
Josh, I think a load of the listeners are probably familiar with the amazing journey, but I always like to tell it because it's important in a number of aspects. One of them is the company's achievements, obviously, and the other is important as well, is that whatever the company has set out to do, it's delivered on what it has promised. And so we started as an OTC company. I acquired a mining focused OTC company, and we sold some gaming assets into this company. The company, I think at the time, had something like $2.9 million worth of toxic debt, and had no revenues. And we cleaned that all up quite quickly. This happened in 2016, and shortly after that, we began generating revenues and profits, and we also cleaned up all of this debt. So the company is debt free, has pretty much been debt free from the outset, or shortly after the outset. And we obviously had this belief that we could list on Nasdaq, and we moved forward on that basis. And quite unique in that most companies that list on Nasdaq, I'm guessing anyway, I could be wrong, but most companies that list on Nasdaq either IPO, or they use in recent times have been using SPACs to get on Nasdaq. For us, it was different because we utilized a listing standard that was based on our historical financial performance, as well as the company's balance sheet. And so just based on the company's balance sheet and its performance, we put in an application to list. It took a little longer than we originally thought it would, but as I've said, the company delivered, and we listed on Nasdaq, and since then the company has continued to perform. Like I say, we've pretty much always been cash positive and profitable, and we have no debt. And that's the story, and that's where we are today.
And what an excellent story it is. I mean, the impressive string of successive quarters of increase in revenue, cash position, and profitability. Can you expose a little bit about GMGI's business model that enables you to operate with such margins to accomplish this?
Yeah, so the two aspects of the business right now is one is to grow the business, a core business, and also to grow the business, to scale the business actually by making sensible acquisitions, and these acquisitions that we have targeted, obviously with Meridian, and will continue to target, are accretive acquisitions that companies that have profitability and cash positive positions, and so in terms of core business growth, we have quite a unique model in that we on the gaming side we have technology that's unique in itself, but it's modular, and we'll probably cover that a little later, but it's a SaaS type model, and our approach to gaining customers is also fairly unique. Customers actually approach us as well because of the model, in that we build casinos for operating customers, online operators. Sometimes they land-based operators that want to become online operators, but the model is that we build the system for them free of charge, and in so doing, we look for operators that obviously are likely to succeed, because we make a percentage of what they generate in terms of gaming. And so if they don't succeed in their online operations, then we don't make any money, because we have a delivery cost obviously for these casinos. But it's a very attractive model, and we get people coming to us. You can see by the numbers, we have over 800 operating casinos on our systems and over 7 million players. People approach us. We investigate to see that they have a capability of running a successful online casino, and then we build the environment for them. And then once the environment's built, then we share in the proceeds of what they generate. And this is quite valuable in that as they grow, the actual income gets higher. So if somebody, for example, came to us and they launched an online casino from scratch, they wouldn't be generating much revenues or much gaming revenue, and over time they would grow their business, and our revenues would grow as a result of that. So we have, as I mentioned, 800 or so operations on our systems. As they grow, our revenues grow, because we capture a percentage of what they achieve, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
How do you keep such a low acquisition cost to get clients?
Yeah, just because that's the model. So if you know, most other system providers would charge some crazy upfront fee, and then they charge management fees every month. We don't do that, and so what happens is people come to us, and we're willing to back ourselves, because we're confident that our systems will retain these operators and also provide fit their needs. And so in as a result, we get these operators coming to us, and we have a list of them right now waiting to be approved and get either white label products or modular pieces of our system. And for them it works as well, because they also starting out a new business, a lot of them, and they have the ability to bring players and maybe come from a land-based environment, and they're not looking to lay out large amounts of money on a system that they're not confident would possibly work down the track, and they come to us. We do a deal that we build the system for them, we deliver it, we white label it, and ultimately we share in the success of their business, and that's a good model for them as well.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, you got to give a little to get a little. How does the unique IP and gaming technology that you've created play into the revenue of GMGI?
So when I talk about the unique IP, it's obviously a tried and tested system, and that's also a very important factor. When people come to you, they want to know that your system can handle millions of players and sustain whatever the needs of their casino are, and we pretty much demonstrate that by having over 7 million players and 600 and something casino operations running on our systems, and that's important. That's one important factor. But the unique IP is also known for mimicking or replicating an environment that these operators are used to. So if they were running a casino call it in Las Vegas or wherever they may be, they would want to know that moving to an online environment doesn't create a lot of pain, in that the systems that we provide are very similar to the systems that they experience or run in the world that they know. And so these systems that we built, we're known for certain hierarchy systems, which are systems that rely on affiliates to introduce traffic, and agency systems that are hierarchy systems. So agents introducing sub-agents who introduce sub-agents, and our systems cater for all of that. And on top of that, we provide over 10,000 of the world's leading online casino games. So we have a huge portfolio of third-party games, but people are looking for a good selection of the best performing casino games, and so it's the portfolio and the reliability, and also the fact that they don't want to take on something that's completely foreign to them.
So just to recap, you make it really comfortable for them to switch into your technology. You provide them everything they need, and you make it very inexpensive for them to start. That's an amazing business model.
Yeah, so we've been successful with it, and we continue to scale, as you mentioned early on, and it's a good model, and we continue to improve our intellectual property, our systems, but at the end of the day, I think, as you just mentioned, the package of how it's sold is very important as well as successful.
Thank you for sharing that. Could you tell us that you mentioned briefly about the white label side of the business? Can you share a little bit about the white label side and how that aids to the revenue of the company?
So yeah, exactly what I covered. When we talk white label, it may be a casino, Lucky Dragon casino that has a presence somewhere in a land-based environment, and they come to us. Part of the construction of the environment is building a casino that utilizes their branding, and their systems that they use to their reporting structures and all of these things. So we build it from the ground up. We also sell modular systems. So we have a very successful loyalty program. They're two very important parts of running a casino. One is acquisition, and the other one is retention. Acquiring a player is very expensive, and you would hope that you can retain that player, which is very important, because if you run out and pay $500 or $600 for that player, you need to be able to retain him. And if you don't have the right retention systems in place, you're constantly paying for players, but you're losing them very quickly. And so you need these modules, especially our retention. We're very well known for our retention system. It's used by some of the largest gaming companies in the world. And it's a loyalty system that keeps the players loyal, and they keep on coming back to the casino and continuing to play. So it is an important item. But we offer up CRM systems, loyalty systems, just content on its own, aggregation systems where people can just buy our content. And as I mentioned earlier, it's third-party content, but we have it on our aggregate systems, which I'll cover a little later.
No problem. I remember the first acquisition that Golden Matrix did was Arkings. Everybody, a lot of the people that are invested in the company have heard the name, but can you touch and explain a little bit about how they generate money, the multiple ways they can bring it in, and how that's going at the present moment?
Yeah, so Arkings has been a very successful acquisition for us. Right now, I'm just giving you rough numbers, but they account for over 50% of our revenues and probably over 50% of our profits in a short period of time. It's a very scalable business, and we put a lot of resources into it. We rebuilt the entire system after we purchased them, and we're continuing to expand on the technology that underpins the system. But it's a very interesting model. What happens is valuable prizes are put up in tournaments, as we call them, and people buy tickets into these tournaments. They answer a skilled question, and then what happens is they go into a draw. Mostly these prizes are drawn on a weekly basis, some a little longer if they're bigger prizes, and they range from smaller vehicles to very exclusive type motor vehicles such as Ferraris and Lamborghinis and these kind of items. And we also have jewelry, holidays, holiday packages, vacation packages. And we put these items up, we sell tickets to them, and then what happens is we have the draw, and it's a random draw. We generally do it, I think, on Google, random number generator, and they're winners. And what happens is we generally would take a prize, mark it up. Let's assume we bought a Ferrari for $100,000. We would sell tickets for $150,000 worth of tickets, and so we would have a 50% markup on it, a 33% margin. And then what would happen when the person wins the vehicle, we offer the person a cash alternative, we call it. So we approach the person, we say, you won the Ferrari, would you like it, or would you rather have some cash? Most people love to win the Ferrari, but actually when the prize is won, they certainly don't want it because it's too expensive to insure, and then they and to keep it on the road. So it's a nice dream. Some people keep the cars, but others say that they'd rather have a cash alternative. The cash alternative is a lower number. So if the value of the car was 100,000, we would provide them with a cash alternative of say 90,000. And then what would happen is they would take the cash, and then we have another company. It's called Arkings Assets, which is like a dealership, and it actually buys the vehicle from them. So they actually win the vehicle. They take the vehicle. They don't take delivery of the vehicle, but they take ownership of the vehicle. And then what they do is they do a deal with our other company, which actually buys the car back from them for cash, and then we resell that vehicle and we make some more money on that as well. So we have three aspects of profitability in these items. The first is the sale of the tickets. The second is the cash alternative, where we can discount the value of the prize. And then the third is actually taking their vehicle back to market and making another margin on it, because the guys at Arkings are extremely experienced car fanatics, if that's what I can call them, and they actually get these cars at a really good price, and then they put them back into the market. We never put up a vehicle twice. We recently had a huge competition where the vehicle wasn't won. It was what's called an instant cash competition, where the prizes are continuously won when people buy tickets, and it remained, but we didn't keep it. We actually put it up as a free draw a few days later, and somebody won it, but we don't ever put up a vehicle twice. I hope that explains.
That's an amazing cash
what
model.
happens. Yeah, big margins, huge margins. Yeah.
Yep. Well, now you shared about R-Kings, I remember one of the next things everybody got excited about was the GMX platform and the P2P aspect of its abilities. Can you tell us how that's going and update everybody on the progress with GMX at the present moment?
So the GMX platform was our original platform, and that was the base structure of, as I mentioned before, meeting the requirements of somebody that's migrating onto an online, into an online environment. And the recent one is actually the GMAG platform, and this this platform is the aggregate system. So it's a seamless system whereby it offers a single wallet. These are specific requirements or needs of bigger operators where they don't want their players moving their money from a sports book to the casino to a potential slot machine back to a sports book, or maybe to a tournament product like R-Kings. It has a consolidated wallet where all of the money sits, and they use it out of one wallet, and it also has all of the games linked into their product, the entire portfolio of games. So instead of the person asking for Aristocrat or somebody like that to be integrated into their system on a one-off basis, they integrate once into our GMAG platform, and they have access to the entire portfolio. And it's very important because the clients are happier just having one wallet and not having to move their money from one product to another. They can use all products just out of one wallet, and they can also use the operator can activate any of these games within his portfolio by just a click of a tick box. They may find some games are not performing for them and others are, and all they do is they just go in and they do it in a configuration, and the games are live. And for us, it's very important as well, because when I mentioned 7 million players, those players are not our players. They belong to the operators, which may not sound valuable, but it is extremely valuable because we have a pipeline into these players. So we have them as an audience. It's as if we're a supermarket and we have access to putting anything on the shelf that we like. And when we have this this aggregated portfolio of games, it enables us to encourage the operator to make all of our games live. And like I said, it's just a configuration for them. But we try and utilize this, and I'll also talk more on this with the Meridian advantages, in that we have this extensive pipeline to 7 million plus players, and we can feed them content, and that's very powerful.
Well, I'm seeing this visual of, every business owner knows that sometimes customers and endpoint users can be really frustrating. So I think that it's a benefit to you to have somebody else that they deal with, and you have the middleman, I guess, so to say. You're still making money off the customers in grand fashion, and you don't have to be the one dealing with the customer service.
Yeah, exactly.
Next, I know that everybody in this room, I've heard most of the questions. People are trying to understand how things are going with MexPlay. You recently launched it in Mexico, and everybody's seeing the posts on Instagram and the different social media platforms of influencers that are not like news and people that are promoting MexPlay. How is it growing? How is the money looking out of MexPlay, and do you see it being profitable here short term, or is it already?
Okay, so the MexPlay, as everybody may know or not know, it is a fully regulated government license from the Mexican government, and we only launched it recently, and it's sort of any casino, as I mentioned earlier. It's a situation of acquisition and retention, and so we've been fairly conservative in ramping up our players. Because we need to understand how much we're paying for them and how much they're spending. And initially, you don't know that because you're buying a player in a foreign environment, and you only know what he's going to spend over time. So if we ran out there and spent $100 a player and found later on that their lifetime value was only $20, $100 and $20, then what would happen is we would have a black hole. We'd be losing money on every transaction. So we're ramping it up as best we can. We're approaching now about 100,000 registered users, and we have about 500 new registrations a day and about $2 million wagering a day, which is really ahead of what we anticipated, and we're going to continue to scale that. The situation also is that we believe that once this acquisition of Meridian is finalized, that Meridian will take it over. Whilst we were able to run a casino, I have extensive experience myself. We originally operated casinos as a B2B business, a B2C business in my previous life. We're not really that experienced in running sports books, and primarily Mexico gambling market is driven on the sportsbook front, and most influencers, as you mentioned, we use a lot of influencers, but influencers as a whole are sportsbook orientated. And so once the acquisition is completed, what will happen is Meridian will take over this B2C business because that's their forte. They run B2C casinos as well as B2C sports books, and sports books are obviously their expertise, and we expect that change to happen once the acquisition is finalized. And as to profitability and as to actual revenues and what's happening there, I'm obviously not able to tell you more than that's appeared in our results. It's not something I can put out there at this stage because
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. But you've, as per the numbers I've just given you, those are those are real numbers and very, like I say, ahead of our expectations. So it's performing really well.
I gotta say, I'm actually comforted by hearing that because, I mean, from a business standpoint, you want to stick to your wheelhouse and what you know best. And like Dale Carnegie said, you want people around you that are better than yourself. And you're finding that from what I hear in the people at MexPlay when it comes to sportsbook. So I know they have a ton of Meridian Bet. I know they have a ton of locations, and that's like their driving force. So it's really awesome to hear that. Before we transition completely into Meridian Bet, which is the meat of why we're here, could you share with us some of the hurdles that you overcame when you listed on Nasdaq Capital Markets?
Yeah, well,
there was
you
a
can
few.
see my hair, my grey hairs, and whatever. But no, it's actually once we listed, it's been a fairly smooth, a journey for us. I mean, we've always been compliant. Obviously we came from the OTC markets, OTCQX market, and we continue to be compliant, and we report as we did, and we fully audited under GAAP, and so everything that we do there hasn't been a huge change, except for that we did realize that we need to scale. We knew that we needed to scale before we got onto Nasdaq, but our focus at that stage was just getting onto the Nasdaq markets and then using that visibility and that and also the ability to raise money ultimately to scale through acquisition. So in terms of growing the core business, I wouldn't say it's had any any effect or any hurdles presented as you put in your question, but in terms of the core business, but in terms now of the acquisition, it's obviously going to present a whole load of opportunities, and it's yeah, we've obviously jumped the first hurdle, and now it's up to us to scale the business, and scale is very important on the Nasdaq markets. We're quite unique. I'm not sure how many people know, but there aren't many profitable gaming companies on Nasdaq, or neither on the New York Stock Exchange. But it's quite unique to be a profitable gaming company. That sounds that sounds strange to people, but most gaming companies are burning huge amounts of money. We're talking, extreme amounts of money. Some of them are competing for market share in the US and attempting to scale their businesses. But it's quite unique to find a profitable gaming company. And so once we scale this, and obviously our intention, you can see that from the proxy statements, is to continue our profitability and our cash positive momentum, and to continue to grow this. And if we keep to that, then obviously we should be able to bring a lot more eyes on us, and get results in terms of the company's performance. We can't do much about other things aside from deliver on what we set out to deliver, and one of them is to scale these revenues substantially, and also to scale the profitability to a large degree. You only need to take out a calculator and work out what our
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
Is right now, and then look at the proxy statement and work out what, even on a reduced multiple, assuming we have a 30 times multiple or whatever it is, even if you took a 15 or 20 times multiple on the pro forma companies, just do those calculations, and you'll understand what's possible. And the pro forma, even though it's a huge, not the pro forma, the proxy statement, even though it's an extensive document, it's got some really important information in there, which you can have a look at, anybody who wants to, and realize that this is a massive opportunity, and it will scale the business considerably.
And everybody's excited about finally being able to, as a small cap company, once this is done, be in front of institutional analysts, being able to be seen and considered by hedge funds. There's a lot of doors that are going to open up once this is finalized. But before we move into that, can you share, for as if the people in this room haven't understood or heard of the Meridian V acquisition, what are the synergies that bring the two companies together?
So, yeah, synergies, the most important synergies are, as I mentioned, they experts in the B2C market. They've shown that by their growth and what they've managed to achieve in also a short period of time. It's remarkable, actually. It's testament to their intellectual property and their ability to do things that a lot of or most other online sporting bet companies can't do. But being an expert in building B2C businesses is very valuable for us, because, like I say, we would hand over the Mexican business, and we'd be able to then utilize their marketing capabilities. They have an extensive and powerful marketing capabilities, as well as they are licensed in over 15 jurisdictions. So that's also a very valuable item, and we would be able to then potentially offer up some of our products through some of their licenses, and they would be able to offer up. They have a studio, which is a game studio, so they produce their own games, their own slot games. It's a company called Expanse, and they're doing really well with third-party people buying their content, aside from them using their own content, which, as you would realize, if you use your own content, you don't really have a direct cost of sale to a third party. You have much higher margins on the games because you keep all the money that's generated by those games. But aside from that, those games will feed into our distribution, which is extremely strong. So our B2B environment, with our 800 plus operators and 7 million plus, we'll go, as I'm going back to now that that distribution that I mentioned earlier, we would be able to feed those games into our system and generate a considerable amount of money, hopefully moving forward. Yeah, they have about 3.5 million retail players in their system. As I mentioned, we got 7 million in our third-party systems, but we have a pipeline to those people. And there may be some running costs that we could lower on the basis of maybe a duplication of certain roles. But overall, it's about scaling and cross marketing our products, and also focusing on our expertise and their intellectual property. I would say prevailing, but being dominant in their arena, and ours in our B2B markets.
Now, we talked a little bit about the synergies of you guys coming together. Now, the flip side of that, what were the biggest challenges in bringing this acquisition together?
I think the biggest challenge was that they were a European reporting, but a European audited company. So they were audited on under IFRS, and obviously in Euro, and as I mentioned, they've got 15 licenses around the world, this in different countries, and it's a fairly big organization. I think they employ about 1,400 staff. Maybe 1,100 retail outlets, casino betting shops around the world, and so they have a considerable operation. The bigger challenge was for us to utilize the IFRS audits that they had, and we decided between us that we would rather provide the SEC with a GAAP audited, PCAOB GAAP audited financials, and this is important in that the SEC accepted it immediately, and obviously the proxy is now definitive, so it's underway. But also I think for everybody out there, we now have PCAOB GAAP audited financials, and so it's going to make our life a lot easier moving forward. It delayed us a few months because that's what we were looking to achieve. But yeah, that was our biggest challenge. In terms of other hurdles, there haven't been many, and I can't really think of any, to be honest, any other hurdles.
No,
it just was the delay in that, and so it's we both conservative in the running of our businesses. So you'll obviously notice from the profit and loss and the balance sheets that are out there that we keep costs very low. Both teams have a lot of synergy in how we run businesses, and our culture is very similar in terms of that. We're not. They've never had any debt and have no debt, which is very similar to us. And like I say, if you look out at the other gaming world out there, you'll see massive amounts of debt and losses and whatever else. This culture that we have is between us is very similar in that, and I think that's why it's going to be, what do we want to call it, a happy marriage moving forward, in that they'll focus on their expertise, we'll focus on ours, and ultimately we'll continue to grow these businesses, and we'll deliver using a conservative, if you want to call it, spending outlook, and and deliver shareholder value, which is what we've always done. So that's our aim, and that's what we'll deliver.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges in talking with investors and shareholders about this long wait on finalizing this was they didn't have a proper expectation on how difficult it is to get a private company fully audited and compliant with what the SEC was asking for, and then to be able to align the reporting dates with each other so that y'all can have your financials combined to be able to close this acquisition. And it was a hurdle that I can sit back and look and appreciate, but I think now shareholders will have a lot better understanding moving forward of how challenging it is when you're doing an acquisition of a large company to get all of those things in line so that you can finalize it.
Yeah, it is, like I said, it's behind us now because the proxy is definitive. But the situation is, as you just mentioned, they have a different year end to us. They have a December year end. We have October. So the problem was lining up these numbers, and every month that goes by creates another issue going backwards, because our numbers become stale, their numbers become stale. Then we've got to wait for the new ones to come out. So it was a juggling match, and we've lined it up. We've jumped that hurdle, and right now, as everybody knows, we have a meeting on the 19th of March to vote on this, and obviously we expect a positive outcome. It's much of a formality because I own the vote, so I actually have the majority vote anyway. But I have no doubt that we'll get a huge support for this transaction. It's a life-changing acquisition, and I think that everybody and all the feedback I've got have been positive, and I think everybody's just wanting it to happen sooner than later. And so everybody's sitting here and saying, can't we do this tomorrow? But we've got to follow the procedure here and get it over the line, and important.
That's exciting, though. I mean, being at the finish line and being able to see it visibly is a great place to be. Would you mind going over the proxy on the acquisition and describing for everyone what the company is going to look like with both companies as one?
So effectively, I'll just give you pieces of it because I don't want to be inaccurate on it. It's quite specific. The board will be changed slightly. It'll still be a 5-member board, but they'll put up one board member, a non-exec. So for all intents and purposes, the existing board will remain in control. They'll be putting up one non-exec, and other than that, it's I'm trying to think what other important things are in there, but just in terms of numbers that are visible aside from the proxy, because it's quite a intensive document. But if you go and look at the Citibank, the deck that was put up a while ago on our website, I think you'll see there the basic parameters of what this company will look like. And I think on most fronts we've surpassed that, but the combined revenues will be greater than 100 million. The projected adjusted EBITDA would be somewhere around 24 million, and that's those in themselves are important items, and it's other than that, there's not a lot that I can add to it, except for those are really quite important things, because we move from where we're at to those numbers, and that's considerable in itself.
Well, let me define it in a different way. So currently, without Meridian Bet, how many countries does GMGI operate in at this moment?
So we have only 2 licenses, gaming licenses. So, we only operate in 2 countries, as in B2C. So operations defined as B2C. We only operate in Mexico, which I mentioned. We have a government license, and in the UK we operate because we have an ability to operate under a particular tournament legislation. So that our King's business operates there. Those are the only 2 B2C businesses that we operate. In terms of operators that use our system, that's entirely different. Off the top of my head, it could be 20 countries. We provide systems and gaming content to these operations, so it's difficult to define exactly how many of those, where these operators are, or how many countries they operate in.
And without Meridian Bet, how many employees roughly are there in Gold Matrix Group at the moment?
I think we have about 28. Some of them in the US, some in the UK and Ireland, and most in Australia. And we also have some in the Philippines as well.
Okay, so just painting the picture now with Meridian Bet, I was on their website prior to this. They're in 40 countries. And like you said, they had 1,100 locations for Sportsbook and 1,400 plus employees. So combined, how many additional countries is Golden Matrix Group going to gain entry into through this Meridian acquisition?
Yes, I mean, we gain all of their jurisdictions in terms of offering up of our products. It's how we roll it out is the question. And you mentioned it differs from their B2C operations. They also have B2B operations. So they have operators that they supply in other countries that they do not have, potentially do not have a license to operate in. So they do supply their systems on a B2B basis. And I think, in answer to your question, yeah, we could step into all or any of those jurisdictions, and we'll start somewhere which are the most logical, and then we'll roll out what we have, and then try and provide value to all of those jurisdictions. And these betting shops, I think they reduce slightly. I think 1,400 may be an older number, but at the end of the day, they're very powerful items because they provide branding. People are very familiar with them. They provide trust in terms of branding because people see them, they can touch and feel them, they go into them, they can have a meal in there, they can have a drink, and they're like a mini sports bar if you want to visualize what they look like. So it's like a mini sports bar, and you go in there, they've got slot machines, they've got terminals where you can play sports bets, and they're highly visible. They're branded heavily, and it's it's a very valuable tool because it can also accept money in those stores, or you can withdraw money. You can withdraw money in those stores, so you can deposit and withdraw, and you can play and you can socialize. So these are powerful tools in bringing recognition and trust to the company, because it's like I say, it's better to be able to see something. People prefer to somehow see something in real life rather than to go online in certain instances. And once they've seen it, then they have trust for it. So it works that way.
That's really huge. Branding is everything. There's a story recently that really caught my attention about what's happening in Brazil. Now, I know that there was a brief mention in a press release about this, but I don't think people know the story behind how instrumental that is, and how things within that country were completely reshaped, and Meridian Bet given this opportunity as one of the first and only companies to have a license for sportsbook there, and what that means to Golden Matrix Group. Could you elaborate on that, please?
So that it's incorrect in that they the only or first. So what happened was the Brazil government would changed along the way, and there was an election, and the legislation that was put forward by the previous government to allow online gambling was changed, and by the new government, and it was pretty much unacceptable, is a word that I can use, by the operators, because it was not workable, and so there was it was sort of a drawn out negotiation. But in the interim, a lot of gaming companies operate in Brazil because they see it as a grey market. So they continue to operate there even though there wasn't legislation. Meridian being one of those companies that launched in Brazil and operates. It has a partner on the ground, and it operates and actually runs a fairly good business there in terms of that it's a new a newish startup, and continues to grow, and it's a very strong market. I think it's classified as the third or fourth largest gaming market in the world. But what's happened is the new government put out the legislation. You had to put in an expression of interest as a person who can operate in Brazil and want to operate. And then once your expression of interest, there was a closing date. And on that closing date, only the expressions, people who put in expression of interest could continue to operate, and then licenses will be awarded. Meridian are very confident that they will get a license. They certainly won't be the only people to get a license, but the license, I think, has certain parameters and criteria that would preclude a lot of the people who were operating there from continuing to operate, and so that's a huge benefit. So there will be one of a smaller amount of operators, if that's what you want to call it, but a very, very strong position to be in, because it's a huge market, and we believe that it'll bring considerable revenues and profits just based on the current operations. So hopefully that clears that up.
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much for clearing up those details. It's always tough hearing things second or third hand rather than directly from the source. There's a lot of ways that money is able to be increased on many different fronts between both companies. It's exciting to see the way it's coming together. Now, all the shareholders want to know, what does it look like from here to be able to complete this acquisition and finalize it?
In terms of money, or terms of
no, I was two separate comments. Just saying that between the growth of Golden Matrix Group, which has been astronomical for the size of company it was 5 years ago till now, and the growth that Meridian Bet has been having over the last few years and what they're doing at this moment, it's nice to see both companies come together. Now, obviously, the acquisition isn't finalized because there's like one little piece to the process left after the vote. Can you give everybody a good expectation of what that is and what it looks like and how long it will be before we can actually say this is a whole company?
Okay, so as I mentioned before, the proxy statement's definitive. It's under an advertising period. 19th of March is a meeting that'll be held to count the votes. It's a formality because I have the majority vote, and I will vote yes, obviously, on putting this forward. But we expect considerable support for it, if not total support for the project. But in terms of closing, there are certain closing requirements. Share certificates of being granted to Golden Matrix from the European companies. So pretty much documentation items that will be required to close this shortly after the meeting. We have a Nasdaq, some Nasdaq requirements that we're working through right now, and we're hopeful that that'll be complete hopefully before the meeting, our requirements. But we also have a cash requirement, which is $30 million has to be paid on closing. And right now, between the companies, we have enough cash to complete those requirements. So we have, I think, 14 or 15 million in cash. Meridian probably got 17 or 18 million in cash. So together, we have enough money to meet those requirements, the payments to the shareholders. But we will, in terms of the proxy statement, there is an ability for us to raise some money up to a maximum dilution. So we put forward an approval to be able to raise up to a certain amount of dilution, but we will raise this money and we'll probably utilize some of it to finalize this transaction as well. But it's not critical in the scheme of things, but it will probably happen, and that's really it. So some documentation requirements that are needed between the companies to exchange of, like I say, share certificates and certain legal items, but overall we expect to close it shortly after the shareholders meeting takes place, and as I mentioned, that's a formality. So
we're talking days or weeks after the 19th.
I don't want to commit to it, but you know, it's anything can happen. So I mean, we you know, we're hoping a couple of weeks, but you know, you never know what you don't know. So
of course,
it's a fairly straightforward process. You don't want to make it more complicated than it is, but it's like buying a home and exchanging mortgage documents, and having your bank in place to settle the money. It's a process where everybody's got to exchange documents and whatever. So that's got to be planned. But all in all, we don't see any hurdles, and you know, right now, and we should close it shortly thereafter.
This is an exciting moment for every shareholder that's been part of this company for quite a while. I'm glad that we've been able to go over all of this. If it's okay with you, I'd love to open the floor up for any questions that an investor might have. We want to make sure those questions are intelligent, good questions. There will be zero bashing. If anybody has anything that they would like to discuss outside of that, obviously you can email the company or contact someone. But if there is some questions about Golden Matrix Group, MexPlay, if there's questions about the company at all, please raise your hand and we'll be happy to bring you up to ask Brian directly. To do that, you would click the heart at the bottom of the space, and when it on the right hand side, it shows a hand. And you would click that to be able to ask a question. Well, I think we've covered everything. I don't know that there's any questions left to have. So I'd be surprised.
See what an amazing speaker I am. You know, I've covered everything in one fell swoop. No question.
Proper prior planning prevents poor performance, you know.
I think it's your planning rather than mine. So yeah, all good.
Awesome. All right. Well, then, if nobody has a question, then we'll conclude this. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. This is recorded. We're going to create a video out of it, and it will be posted to Golden Matrix Group's YouTube page and all the social media channels for your due diligence at later times. There is one really strong question I forgot to ask. It wasn't long ago that the company announced a stock buyback. Has any of that transpired, or what are the plans with that?
So I wish we had the clear period, if that's what you want to call it. Currently, we're in a blackout because of the actual proxy. We've been in a blackout period because of the financials, because it's just been our year-end filing, and now we're moving into our quarterly filing, which happens soon after. So we were unable to exercise that buyback until such time as, I think it's 24 hours or 48 hours, I can't remember, after we filed our quarterly, which should happen soon. I'm not exactly sure what date, but in the coming weeks. So as soon as that opens, then we're in a position to continue with the buyback. And also, obviously, we need to wait until the advertising period is over, the 19th of March. So that's the reason for us not being active on that front. And we'll have a look at it once our blackout periods end, and we'll consider it then again.
That's excellent. There's a lot. Being able to explain that to the investors, that it's not the company. There literally is blackout periods before and after filings and during acquisitions or proxy that keep the company from being able to do the buyback. So I'm sure you've been wrenching your hands wanting to exercise that, and I'm sure you will after everything's finalized.
I'm giving you no clues, but yeah, just that we will be able to do it again. And I also wanted to obviously thank everybody, not only for coming today and listening into this, but for the people that support the company. It's a journey, and it's had its hurdles, as we've discussed along the way, and we appreciate that. We appreciate all of their support. And like I say, we've delivered on what we set out to do in every instance, and we'll continue to deliver shareholder value and build this company. And we look forward to you guys staying on and supporting us. And it doesn't go unnoticed that we got all of these these shareholders from say the original days when when we started out, and it's a really good thing to know that I have their support, and we look forward to continuing to work with you guys. And if you ever have any questions, you're welcome to send in an email, as you said, Josh, and we can look to see if we can answer it. Obviously, things that are not public cannot be disclosed, but anything else, I'm happy to even jump on a call and have a chat.
That's exciting. So guys, thank you. So considering the ease of how this went, I'm maybe I'm forward thinking, but I'm hoping that we can get you back on here at a later time to have more conversations like this with investors and traders, because it's transparent, it's very efficient, and I think that it will go a long ways with easing people's fears that have questions and don't quite understand how to figure out the answers.
Yeah, and I think another potential opportunity is the chap who runs, who's the CEO of Meridian Bet. His name is Zoran, and he's an amazing. He has an amazing knowledge of the markets, and I would strongly suggest that he be part of one of these, and potentially educate people as to what the benefits of Meridian, what their strengths are, what their technology entails, and I think that could be a good one.
Yeah, let's set that up. That sounds like a great idea. I would look forward to doing that, obviously after March 19th, so everything can get finalized. There is one question. Brian Fashow has a question. Brian, if you would, you got to click the mic on the bottom left to be able to speak. Are you with us? All right. Well, I think we have it, folks. It's been a wonderful time. Again, this is Golden Matrix Group CEO Brian Goodman, and this is JRC Stock Talk. We're signing off. We'll have a live recorded video of this that we'll post, so everybody will be able to access that at a later time. Thank you so much for coming. You guys have a blessed day, and we'll talk to you again soon.